Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Hope you all are fine and enjoying the good health with the blessing of Allah. This is your science teacher, Mrs. Madiha Ashraf. Students, we are doing chapter number 5. Where does our food come from? Our today's topic, too much fertilizers. Let's recap our previous lecture. In our previous lecture, we have discussed why we use fertilizers. The use of fertilizers help the mankind to increase the yield of crops to meet the food supply of growing population. As the population is increasing day by day, so to meet the demand of food, we entirely depend on the use of fertilizers, because fertilizers increase the yield or production of the crops. So fertilizers are widely used as medium to increase the food productivity. Why farmer preferably use the fertilizer or synthetic fertilizers? Because it increases the yield of the crops so that the food supply for the growing population can be achieved. What are the fertilizers? Recall, fertilizer is organic and inorganic material. It may come from the natural or synthetic origin. It is added to the soil to provide nutrient essential for the plant's growth. Importance of fertilizer for the plant. We already know that fertilizers play a key role in ensuring the crop's yield, or in other words, it increases the production of crops. Why it is important for the plant's growth? Fertilizers contain the 3 essential elements. These are named as primary nutrients for plant. Those fertilizers that contain essential nutrients are mainly nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. These are essential nutrients that help the plant's growth. So, why they are needed? Recall, nitrogen helps the plant in its better growth. Phosphorus makes the root stronger, and potassium is helpful for fruits and flowers. See here, farmer is supplying the fertilizers, or plant is taking the fertilizers. Why? Because the nutrients are helpful for the plant to grow betterly, and we achieve the yield of our crops like wheat, corn, rice, and many more in the short time in more quantity. So the production rate increases. So we all humans depends on the crops for our food. It's not surprising for you that more than 50% of our population depend on crops for their food, that are prepared or that are grown by using the fertilizers. And one other purpose for the use of fertilizer was, if the plants are not getting enough nutrient naturally, then these are supplied by synthetic fertilizers or chemical fertilizers. What do you think? Adding too much fertilizer will be harmful or not? Well, our nature has always taught us to maintain a balance. How? See a simple example. If we eat a lot, our body go out of shape and tell us to do exercise and come back to our ideal circumference. And if we do reverse, if we do a lot of exercise, then we are told to do relax or to take some rest. So nature works constantly till a balance is attained, but humans don't do so. So adding too much fertilizer, like eating too much, our body get out of shape or it do not work properly. In the similar way, if adding too much fertilizers to the plant, then it can be harmful to the environment. How it can be harmful to the environment? Think some ways. If we add too much fertilizers for the plant, how it may harm the plant or the environment. The development of new high yield crops like wheat and rice, they help us to meet the world's increasing demand for food. Their yield or production is increased by the use of fertilizer. But these new cereals need more fertilizers than their old types or than their old varieties. So modern fertilizers are soluble in water. Soluble mean they can be dissolved in water. So when they dissolve in water, then they can add it in the soil, and when there is the rainfall or there is the irrigation, then they may be carried to the water bodies like lakes, ponds, river and ocean. So in this way, it can harm our environment. It can contaminate our water also. It can add the toxic substance and take them to the lakes where aquatic life can be disturbed. So adding too much fertilizer can be harmful to the environment. Let's see some ways how adding too much fertilizers is harmful. The first problem that arises is the health problem. Adding too much fertilizers can cause the health problem or risks to human, animal and also plants. Now, do think how it causes the health problem to us, animal and even for the plant. Whenever excessive fertilizers are used in a soil, it may absorbed by the soil and reaches to the underground water. And when this underground water is extracted for the domestic purpose, they become the part of body of the human and animals. So it can cause serious health problems, and even these fertilizers become the part of plant's body and they may transmit to the humans through the vegetables and fruits. A second problem that is related to the excessive use of fertilizer is named as soil depletion, or it also can be named as the infertility of the soil. Adding too much fertilizer can cause a soil depletion. It means if we add too much fertilizers, then it can also increase the acidity of the plant. So where some plants cannot grow betterly. So these type of the issues created by the use of excessive fertilizers. So how we can resolve them? By knowing the texture or by doing the soil test and using the appropriate fertilizers that can suit the condition of the soil, and also using the fertilizer at the suitable time. The third major problem that we will discuss in detail is water contamination. As the name shows, water contamination, it means the water bodies like ponds, lakes, river, ocean are contaminated by fertilizers. How it reaches to them? When the fertilizers run off from the crops, they flow directly into the water resources nearby them and contaminate them. Now we will see them in detail. effects on water. If you observe this lake carefully, is this clear water? Is this clear water? No, this is not clear water. What do you observe here? What can you see here? You notice that some green patches are shown on the top layer. Why this is so? Chemical fertilizers pollutes the water bodies mainly as when fertilizers run off, and the second process that is named as the eutrophication. How fertilizers run off affect water sources. See here, the two fields of different crops are shown to you. Whenever there is a rainfall or irrigation is given to the crops, what do you observe in this picture? What is your observation? You can see here clearly that the soil do not maintain its level, it start eroding. Similarly, in the second picture, you can see the excessive water is there. So, it also carry the land with it whenever there is the irrigation or rainfall. So fertilizers, what is meant by runoff? Fertilizers reach different marine ecosystem through a process that is named as runoff. When there is a rainfall or irrigation or snow melts, these all cause more water to enter the soil. Water where it goes to the soil or soil absorb it. But excessive water is there, so the more water enter to the soil, then it can absorb. So the excessive water will run off the land and take it into the nearby bodies of the water. What happened? The excessive water flows. Why do it happens? Because the soil can absorb sufficient amount of water, but the extra amount of the water will not be absorbed. So the excess amount of water will run off the land and take it into the nearby bodies of the water. So it also carries the fertilizers with them. They also carry the nutrients with them, and they reaches to the lakes and water bodies. Where these are going to? They are reaching to the water bodies like lakes, rivers, pond or ocean, which are nearer to them. Now another process we will see here. Have you ever seen the green patches on a pond or open water system? I think so you have observed it. What these are? These are actually the algae formation on water layers. Why it grow or why it form? Because of the nutrients reaches to the water. Bloom of algae seen in water bodies like ponds, lakes, etc. due to what? Due to the enrichment of nutrient or mineral in that water is called eutrophication. When a pond or the lake become richer in the nutrient or minerals which reach to them by the process of runoff, then the algae grow over there and form a thick layer on the surface of water which we can see easily. This process is named as eutrophication. Now how this process occur? process of eutrophication is divided into 5 phases. Look at first phase is the name as nutrients load up. Second phase is named as plants flourish. Third step is named as algae bloom. Fourth, decomposition and depletion of oxygen. Fifth phase is the death of the ecosystem. First step, see in detail. Whenever the water from the crops carrying the minerals or nutrients and also the water from untreated sewage is flushed into the rivers or water bodies, then the nutrients reaches or dissolve in this water or become the part of that river or the lakes. Plants flourish. These pollutants or these nutrients or minerals or chemicals cause the aquatic plant to grow fastly like algae, duckweed and other plants. So this phase is named as plants flourish. The third phase of this process is the top layer. If you see the top layer of this lake or river, the green algae layer is there. How it is formed? Due to the enrichment of nutrient in this water. So algae is formed here. What it do now? It form a thick layer on the surface of water and stop the sunlight which is reaching to the aquatic plants. When it will stop the sunlight, then it will disturb the process of photosynthesis that is taking place in the presence of sunlight. So the plants cannot prepare their food, and during the process of photosynthesis, which gas is produced last? Photosynthesis is a process in which carbon dioxide, water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll converts into the food glucose plus oxygen. So if the photosynthesis stops, so it means the oxygen level is also reducing in the lake or the water body. So the oxygen is also named as depleted. Oxygen start becoming less. So oxygen is depleted. Algae blooms, preventing sunlight reaching the other plants. The plants start dying and the oxygen in the water is depleted. Third step is what? In water, oxygen is depleted. Why? Because the photosynthesis stopped, because the algae layers stop the sunlight that is reaching to the aquatic plants. The fourth stage is the decomposition. Further, when the plants die, then they are accumulated on the bottom layer and are decomposed or decay due to the action of bacteria or decomposers. So they use up even the more oxygen in the water. So oxygen level is further reduced. The dissolved oxygen is further reduced because photosynthesis stopped and the decomposers and other animals are also depending the remaining oxygen in it. So the final and the fifth stage is the death of the ecosystem. What happened at this stage? Oxygen level reaches a point where no life is possible. So fish and other organisms die. So this whole process is named as the process of eutrophication. This happens due to the presence of minerals or chemicals which are flushed into the water bodies or carried by the rainfall or rainwater or untreated sewage. They all contain some nutrients or minerals which help the growth of the algae, and algae stop the photosynthesis by stopping the sunlight, and oxygen level is reduced. Then plants decompose or decay by decomposers, so also use the further oxygen, and then the oxygen level reduced to the minimum where there is no life or no life is possible. Now see some eutrophic lakes. 50%. Students, did you know 50% of the United States lakes are eutrophic? It means they are depending on synthetic fertilizers for increasing the crop yield. What are the causes and effects of eutrophication? Eutrophication is the process that is due to the excessive use of fertilizers. What are the causes of eutrophication? We have highlighted the two main causes are the addition of artificial fertilizers and untreated sewage. Fertilizers and untreated sewage contain the substance mainly nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. They are flooded to the lakes and ocean through the rain and sewage. When these substances are added to the water bodies, they boost the excessive growth of algae in water and decreasing the level of oxygen for aquatic life. These phenomena now leads to some effects. What are these? Number one, it causes the death of aquatic life because the level of oxygen is reduced to a minimum level that where no life is possible. And number two, it also indirectly imbalance the food chain, like different kind of the fish in water tend to be a main source of various birds, animals of an environment including us. So they can disturb the food chain. If aquatic life ends, so it means it will indirectly affect the food chain. See here, the dead fish are shown in a river. Why this is so? It means something toxic is here or something is there which is responsible for their death, or this is the polluted water. Number of the things comes in your mind. You can make a list of the things when you see this picture that comes in your mind. What are the reason behind? Here we are focusing on one process that is named as eutrophication due to the enrichment of fertilizers or excessive use of fertilizers which are drained or flushed into the river. How the water ecosystem dies, we have discussed in detail. Can you state the 3 or 2 or whatever, how many causes are there? You can make the list of them. Well, what are these? We can say that the water ecosystem dies, or the cause of the deaths of these fish are due to the toxic chemicals which are added to the lakes or river as the synthetic fertilizers, or sewage water is dropped into the nearby water bodies. Then excessive growth of the algae stop the sunlight and stop the photosynthesis process, and at last it causes the deficiency of oxygen or the depletion of oxygen. How we can sum up the eutrophication process? Simply by drawing a flow sheet diagram. A flow sheet diagram is shown here. The first layer of water is shown here. Now the nutrients from the sewage and fertilizers are flushed into the water bodies. The first phase is the rapid growth of algae, and these algal blooms blocks the light. The second phase, what happened? Plants dies because of lack of light, and these plants are decayed or decomposed by bacteria. Then bacteria use up the oxygen in water So it become anoxic. It means the oxygen level reduced or become minimum. Oxygen level falls and other animals die because they cannot respire without oxygen. So eutrophication causes the death of the ecosystem. This is the end of the today's lesson. There is an assignment. You have to state the reason of the following questions after understanding the topic. Why algae blooms are seen in water bodies? You have to state the reason in 1 or 2 lines. The main reason. What is the main reason for the algae blooms that are in water bodies? Question number 2. You have to name the 2 factors that are causing eutrophication. Eutrophication process, we have discussed it in detail. You have to highlight the main 2 factors which are responsible for this process. And question number 3. For question number 3, how eutrophication imbalance the food chain. Food chain, how it disturb the food chain. For finding the reason, there is a hint for you. See, the 2 ecosystems are shown to you. One is the healthy ecosystem and one that is eutrophic ecosystem. You can see here minimum pollution is there or minimum use of the fertilizers are there. So how the first layer is free from pollutant and oxygen level is also shown here. The fish and the aquatic plants are also shown. If you see or compare this ecosystem in which the oxygen level falls due to the excessive addition of the fertilizers, water may become polluted. Cross are shown here. It means stop the sunlight, that will stop photosynthesis for aquatic plant, they will die. So the things or the herbivores which depend on these plants will also die. So in this way the food chain is disturbed. This picture is giving you the more idea about it. Harmful algal bloom. What it cause? It cause the death of the plants and decrease the number of herbivores. So if the herbivore, like here this fish is the herbivore, is eaten up by another, if its population or number is decreased, of course its population will also decrease. On the other side, it is also eating the small fish and the jellyfish. If the number of this fish is reducing who is eating these small fish, but there is now no fish to eat them or jellyfish, so the population of these will increases, these will increases. On the other side, the population of certain types or certain species will decreasing. So decrease and increase, so it means this is the imbalance of the food chain. So you have to write just the short answers in your own words. No need to worry, take it easy and share your answers. Thank you. Have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.